Okay, so a little project I decided to work on is doing is when I read articles and I'm learning is to make videos of them and read it out loud so as to improve my public speaking ability and also to monitor how well and lucid I speak. It will motivate me to improve my physical and mental health because when I am physically healthier and have more energy and will have better mental health, then I read more lucidly, I read more fluently, I'm more, what's the word for well spoken? See, I'm not even remembering a word. So I need to start reading books, but I don't have a lot of motivation to do so. So I'm going to start reading them out loud because I want to create content. I just don't want to. I don't want to only consume content. I want to create it. So this is a project for my self-directed learning, is to start reading things out loud so that I remember them better. Just reading something is one thing, but when you speak it out loud, then it improves your verbal skills. Like if you don't have a great social life and you're not talking to a lot of people, you don't get the chance to speak a great deal. And so your speaking abilities deteriorate and your vocabulary deteriorates. But if you read a great deal, then your vocabulary improves. And if you speak a lot, the part of your brain responsible for thinking actually grows in size due to neuroplasticity. So I want to speak more every day. I want to speak a great deal. I want to share new ideas and experiences with the world. Right now, I don't have the ability to create content that gets a lot of views and comments and feedback, but I will in the future. So in the meantime, I will just create videos that chronicles my learning and my growth, and people will see how I transformed myself from someone that didn't have anything going for him to someone that is successful, or someone who tried to become successful but inevitably failed because of the isolated, fragmented world we live in. So today I'll begin by reading this article about the 10 most influential psychologists in history. So here we go. The breadth and diversity of psychology can be seen by looking at some of its best known thinkers. While each theorist may have been part of an overriding school of thought, like a paradigm, that's a word for a school of thought, each brought a unique perspective to the field of psychology. The list below provides a snapshot of the careers of 10 leading psychologists and their most important contributions to the field. Developed using the most rigorously generated study of the 100 most eminent psychologists of the 20th century as a guide, the list is by no means exhaustive. Instead, the purpose of this list is to offer a glimpse into some of the major theoretical outlooks that have influenced not only psychology, but also the larger culture. Number 1. B.F. Skinner. B.F. Skinner's staunch behaviorism made him a dominating force in psychology and therapy techniques based on his theories that are still used extensively today, including behavior modification and token economics. Skinner is remembered for his concepts of operant conditioning and schedules of reinforcement. Number 2. John Piaget. John Piaget's theory of cognitive development had a profound influence on psychology, especially the understanding of children's intellectual growth. His research contributed to the growth of developmental psychology, cognitive psychology, genetic epistemology, and education reform. Albert Einstein once described Piaget's observation on children's intellectual growth and thought processes as a discovery so simple only a genius could have thought of it. Number 3. Sigmund Freud. When people think of psychology, many tend to think of Sigmund Freud. His work supported the belief that not all mental illnesses have psychological causes. He also offered evidence that cultural differences have an impact on psychology and behavior. His work contributed to our understanding of human development, personality, clinical psychology, and abnormal psychology. I think that could have been written better, because Sigmund Freud really popularized the fields of psychology the field of psychology, and there's much more to be said about Freud. Much to be criticized and much to be celebrated as profound realizations that changed mankind forever. Number 4, Albert Bandura. Albert Bandura's work is considered part of the cognitive revolution in psychology that began in the late 1960s. Bandura's social learning theory stresses the importance of observational learning, imitation, and modeling. Learning would be excessively laborious, not to mention hazardous, if people had to rely solely on the effects of their own actions to inform them what to do, Bandura explained in his 1977 book, Social Learning Theory. Number 5, Leon Festinger. Leon Festinger developed the theories of cognitive dissonance and social comparison to explain the ways in which social conditions influence human behavior. Cognitive dissonance is a state of discomfort you feel when you hold two conflicting beliefs. You may smoke even though you know it is bad for your health. That's an example of cognitive dissonance. When you also believe that cigarettes are good for you and make you happier. His social comparison theory says that you evaluate your ideas by comparing them with what other people believe. You're also more likely to seek out other people who share your beliefs and values. Number 6, William James. Psychologist and philosopher William James is often referred to as the father of American psychology. His teachings and writings helped establish psychology as a science. Among his many accomplishments was the publication of the 1,200-page text, The Principles of Psychology, which quickly became a classic in the field. In addition, James contributed to functionalism, pragmatism, and influenced many students of psychology during his 35-year teaching career. Functional and pragmatism influenced many students of psychology during his 35-year teaching career. It's William James, the father of psychology. Ivan Pavlov. Ivan Pavlov was a Russian physiologist whose research on conditioned reflexes and classical conditioning influenced the rise of behaviorism psychology. Remember Pavlov's dogs? You ring the bell, the dogs come for food. That's conditioning. Pavlov's experimental methods helped move psychology away from introspection and subjective assessments to the objective measurements. Pavlov's experimental methods helped move psychology away from introspection and subjective assessments to the objective measure of behavior. Number 8, Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers placed emphasis on human potential, which had an enormous influence on both psychology and education. He became one of the major humanist thinkers and an eponymous influence in therapy with his client-centered therapy. His daughter, Natalie Rogers, described him as a model for compassion and democratic ideals in his own life and in his work as an educator, writer, and therapist. Carl Rogers placed a huge emphasis on human potential. Client-centered therapy. So Carl Rogers started positive psychology. Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson's stage theory of psychosocial development helped create interest in research on human development through the lifespan. An ego psychologist who studied with Anna Freud, Erikson expanded psychoanalytic theory by exploring development throughout life, including events of childhood, adulthood, and old age. Number 10, Lev Vygotsky. Lev Vygotsky was a contemporary of some better-known psychologists, including Piaget, Freud, Skinner, and Pavlov. Yet his works never achieved the same eminence during his lifetime. This is largely because of many of his writing remained inaccessible to the Western world until quite recently. Starting in the 1960s and throughout the 1990s, that many of his writings were translated from Russian, but his work has become enormously influential in recent decades, particularly in the fields of educational psychology and child development. Lev Vygotsky. While his premature death at age 38 put a halt to his work, he went on to become one of the most frequently cited psychologists of the 20th century. All these geniuses, these giants of psychology. I haven't studied a lot of their works. I've read about Skinner. I have heard about John Piaget, but I've never read his work. Sigmund Freud. I actually haven't read anything by Sigmund Freud, but I learned a great deal about him in psychology courses. Albert Bandura, never heard of him before. Leon Festinger, never heard of him before, but I've heard of, cognitive dissonance and social comparison theory. William James, I've heard of him before. Ivan Pavlov, we've all heard of Pavlov's dogs. Carl Rogers, I've heard of him. Erik Erikson, heard of him. Lev Vygotsky, never heard of him. So I have a lot more to learn and study. So I'll start reading more books about psychology as part of my effort to destroy, eliminate, and overcome procrastination. I have a lot to learn, and I want to tackle it like I'm in college. The studying. I want to study a great deal every day and learn more as part of my self-education because I need knowledge and wisdom. I love to learn. I love self-directed learning. I love being in college. I love being in college. I love studying. I love the courses where I love psychology courses a great deal, and I could go for a master's in psychology, or I could go for a degree in law. I'm not sure yet. So I will chronicle my studies here and begin reading more, speaking more, becoming more eloquent. That was the word I was searching for earlier, eloquent. Improving my vocabulary, improving my ability to speak, improving my ability to relay ideas through words, improving how well spoken I am, learning how to not mumble, and improving my ability to articulate ideas, thoughts, facts, opinions, so on and so forth.